And welcome to episode 16 of the Beantown Banter podcast. Here with Patrick Donnelly, I'm Brady Gardner. Patrick, how are we?
We're good.
We're good.
We're,
Good to
we're,
hear.
we're shook that Cody Parkey missed that.
Yeah, so we're recording this on a Sunday night right after Bears kicker Cody Parkey just missed a potential game-winning field goal in the NFL wildcard round. But we'll wait on that thought and save that for a little bit later during our kind of NFL segment after we go through all the Boston sports. Once again, we're recording here on Skype, so that's why the audio quality might be a little bit different than what you're accustomed to. But we've already covered that before, so nothing new there, really. So moving along. So we'll start with our usual first team off the blocks, and that's the New England Patriots, who had an off week this week after earning their first round bye in the NFL postseason. But we now know who the Patriots' opponent will be next week in the divisional round. It will be the LA Chargers, who are coming off of a 23-17 victory over the Baltimore Ravens earlier today. So, Patrick, your thoughts on taking on the Chargers?
Doesn't scare me as much since it's at Gillette.
That's
Actually, I'm looking at the stat now from Mike Reese on ESPN.com, and Patriots 8-0 at home, Chargers 8-1 on the road.
Right. Well, they don't even really have a home stadium. It's just that stupid little soccer stadium you have down there in LA.
That gets filled by 30,000 visitor fans.
Yeah, visitor fans. That's right. So, yeah, they've been a road team pretty much for 17 games this year, if you now count this one against the Ravens. But they've been dominant on the road, to say the least. I think it's probably the worst team you could have had come in here for divisional weekend.
For sure. My preferences went Ravens, Texans, and then the Chargers.
You wanted the Ravens first.
I did.
Wow, why?
I don't know. I just felt better about them than Houston.
Okay. See,
and obviously,
I think Houston just always loses to you. They see Bill Belichick on the other sideline, and Bill O'Brien just wets his pants looking at it. You beat them in week 1. You beat them in numerous wild or divisional rounds, it seems. I would have liked Houston, but they put up a real dud over there against the Colts, losing 21-7. So yeah, you're taking on the Chargers. I didn't think they were amazing against the Ravens, though. Yeah, I thought there were definitely holes to exploit there.
I only watched the first half because it was a complete snooze fest until the fourth quarter for whatever reason, just like this game right now.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you got to hope that Melvin Gordon's injury is a little more serious than they were saying, and that even though he did come back, that would certainly help the Patriots.
Well, yeah, and even just the fact that he's probably got that in the back of his mind, but got to be careful of that left knee. Actually, it was the left knee today, but I think it's been the right knee earlier in the season. I think just the thought of him, potentially re-injuring it could play a role there for the LA offense. If they're really looking long-term, maybe they think, okay, we can't really use Gordon too much against the Pats because we're going to need him against, like, the Chiefs next week. I think it's a kind of a tricky line you're trying to tightrope there with Melvin Gordon. But yeah, I think, yep.
But it wouldn't be that much of a loss, though, because, I mean, however it happened, Jason McCourty was ranked in the top 10 of cornerbacks. But, I mean, that other side from Stephon Gilmore is certainly a weakness that they could just target through the air and not miss Melvin Gordon at all.
Yeah, and I think that's the real danger of the Chargers offense because he's still got Antonio Gates there picking up receptions with that connection he has with Phillip Rivers. You have Keenan Allen, that's his name. On the other side, you have, Mike Williams? Is that his name?
I think so. And 80, Travis 81. Benjamin, too.
Travis Benjamin. Travis Benjamin. Kelvin Benjamin's on the Chiefs now.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, Kelvin Benjamin. Oh, yeah, they picked him up.
Right.
Even if they don't have Gordon that much on the ground, Austin Eckler was still fantastic in his absence the last few weeks.
Right. I think, Phillip Rivers does scare me a little bit more than usual this year. He just seems like he's kind of re-energized. He's a guy who's never really won, late in the postseason in his career. So maybe he's due for one. Maybe, things are finally starting to click for him. But I do think he's a guy that kind of always comes up with a mistake at, a bad time. We saw it today, almost letting that Ravens team back in, whether that was Rivers' fault or offensive coordinator not choosing the right place to kill off that clock or what. But it just seemed like they left that door open for the Ravens the entire second half, really, to the point where they needed a stop, in the last minute of the game to actually pull out the win. So I think there is an opportunity there for the Chargers to kind of let one slip late. And I think Phillip Rivers probably has a kind of a big say in that, being a guy who has made his fair share of mistakes in big moments in the past.
Well, I think like looking at this year overall for Phillip Rivers, seems more of a guy who's fed up to me.
Really?
Fed up with always having the team that chokes in the fourth quarter and the
Hmm.
team that chokes in the divisional round, or you make it to the AFC Championship game, but you got to play on a torn ACL. I mean, he seems like he's fed up, and I wouldn't write him off, but
Right.
because
I
he
think.
played at the MVP level, even though they did have a pretty weak schedule,
Hmm.
but the talent is there.
Yeah. Just the biggest thing that scares me, though, with this Chargers team is that defense. And you saw it today against the Ravens. It was against a rookie quarterback, and their second time seeing that rookie quarterback in Lamar Jackson. But just the job they did, both in the secondary with all those athletic secondary players they have, and sometimes putting in members of like the secondary in as linebackers to get that extra speed. I think that's really dangerous, especially considering the Patriots have so many guys that they like to have, running short routes and stuff like that. Could
Hmm.
really be difficult for Tom in the air next week. But then also in their defensive line, just quick guys. You see Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa, just fast guys that can get around the edges and really threaten the quarterback. Even a mobile quarterback like Lamar Jackson, they were giving him fits today. You wonder how that'll be with 41-year-old Tom Brady and the state his knee may be in. You worry a little bit if the Patriots offensive line will be able to keep up.
Yeah, so Joey Bosa obviously scares anybody, but especially scares me with the inconsistency of the offensive line. They didn't start off too hot, but they pulled it together. But you never know if they could just fall apart again. And like you said, putting defensive backs in as linebackers kind of negates the idea or negates the possibility of Gronk exposing a linebacker because you could just put a defensive back in there.
And same thing with a running back coming out of the backfield. They're no longer covered by some slow linebacker, and now it's like a safety or somebody chasing them. So could limit
Hmm.
James White, Rex Burkhead in the passing game.
Absolutely could.
Yeah, so I think definitely going to be a testing game there against the LA Chargers. But maybe it'll be a good setup game as they prepare to potentially take on the Chiefs in Arrowhead Stadium if they're able to take care of the Indianapolis Colts who are streaking. Um, I don't know if we should really look that far down the road just yet. I think we should save the AFC Championship talk towards when we actually get into it if we're able to beat the LA Chargers.
Yeah. Obviously, nothing can prepare this Patriots team for having to go play at Arrowhead, but we
Hmm.
shall see.
Right, but that's
Also,
another. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
yeah. Also, this headline here: Patriot or Tom Brady spends time with personal throwing coach during the bye week to fine tune his fundamentals.
Yeah, that's interesting because that's kind of the guy that he runs around on the beach with in the off season or in Montana.
Just up at the soccer field in Montana.
Right, you never see that guy in the regular season, it seems. But I don't know. I wonder if that's like relating to the knee because we've seen Tom's knee really take a beating late in the season. He just didn't seem like the same quarterback. So you wonder if maybe they're trying to, instead of hope that the knee gets better, try to figure out how to throw with that knee. But he seems like he it's tricky. It's tricky because some of his throws, they're on the money. This is vintage Tom right here, and then other ones he's wobbling them. He's looking like Peyton Manning late in his career, throwing bad picks and that kind of thing. So I
Yeah,
was curious seeing that guy back in the facilities.
I mean, they asked Dorsett about it and Hoyer about it. They seem to just like it's just Tom always wanting to be better and always focusing on fundamentals, which is what Tom does. But it's usually what he does in the offseason. But understandable why he's doing it now. A little shaky the past few weeks in the past game, fine tune everything.
Right. Well, Tom Brady has never lost to Philip Rivers, so they got that working for them.
They do,
But it does
and
seem like this is a much different LA Chargers team. So how much can you really credit that? I don't know.
true. But also, they can easily be outcoached.
The Chargers?
Yes.
Yeah, I do think so, especially with the game management late in the day today, letting the Ravens almost get back into it. And they did get back into it. They just didn't, get all the way. I don't know the
Exactly.
name of the coach there, but I think he's been there 2-3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't seem like a guy that can really match wits with Bill. Not sure anyone can. But hopefully they can take advantage of this extra bye week that they've had and, get healthy, get a good scheme going ahead of, this big game next Sunday.
Yep.
Also, one other thought, we've had some coaches interviews going on with Josh McDaniels, Brian Flores potentially leaving in the offseason. How much, I guess, stock do you put into either of these guys potentially making a move?
Well, Brian Flores, not Hoyer, Flores,
Oh boy.
was interesting because I know he's been. I mean, Bill's technically still a defensive coordinator as well, but Hoyer's been taking a bigger role this year, even still as the linebackers coach.
Mhm.
So it's interesting to see him go to a head coach right away. It'd be like the Mike Vrabel thing, which hasn't really worked out so far.
He's been all right though.
Yeah, they've been
The
okay,
record wasn't great, but he's done some good things.
but they've also had some questionable things too, like that going for that 2-point conversion,
Right.
etc.
College move.
Yeah. Um, It'd be interesting. I mean, Josh McDaniels, as long as he's an offensive coordinator here, his name's going to be out there anyways. But
Mhm.
I thought Flores was more of the interesting name there.
Yeah, and you wonder with Flores because we say he doesn't really have that experience as a head coach. But if teams are seeing what he's doing here, I think if he's going to get the opportunity to get a big payday and go somewhere, this might be his best chance to do it. So I wouldn't be
Yeah,
surprised if we see Flores kind of disappear here. Also, wouldn't be surprised though if he sticks around because he's only been in the role for 1 year.
yeah,
I feel like McDaniels though is definitely going to be here to stay. I just don't see him taking a
yeah,
head coaching year or head coaching gig the year after he does the Colts the way he did last year.
yeah. I think that he's obviously in waiting to be the head coach whenever that comes around. I think,
Hmm.
and it's
Which I
sort of
don't
how,
still don't know
which,
if I love that, but
yeah,
I guess
I'm
at
not
least
sure
there's a
how I feel about it either, but it's inevitable. I think,
ugh.
sort of like how obviously a much more positive thing, but sort of like how Bergeron's captain in waiting. Um, but yeah, it's just interesting though because you feel like Flores is on the track to becoming the defensive coordinator, and he's not. He's still not even. He's still a positions coach, and he's jumping right to a head coach. That I just don't see that working.
Exactly. Hmm.
But good for him if he gets his money.
Right, and it is actually funny too because he was taking an interview I guess with the Browns when apparently McDaniels has a ton of interest in the Browns and they have none in him. Allegedly, this is all just reports, but that'd be
Yeah,
pretty
Josh
funny if
probably wants to go with Baker.
of course he does. It's a guy who's obviously malleable. You could kind of make him into the quarterback you want him to be, as he's going to only be in his second year. You've got good young offensive talent there. You've got a defense that looked to be making some strides this season. There's a lot of upside there with the Browns. Um,
You'd have a real good defense if you had a secondary in Cleveland.
yeah, that's a good point. I, and then
That pass
they
rush.
also say Josh with Rodgers, which in Green Bay, which
I don't think
interests
that
me
would
a
work
little
out.
bit. What?
I don't think that would work out.
No, why not?
No. Green Bay doesn't have the roster. I think Josh needs to walk into a good situation, like
The
Cleveland.
The tricky thing though in Green Bay is that who are they going to bring in that has that kind of that level above Aaron? Because it's not going to be like if Joe Philbin takes over that head coaching job, can he say, "Well, I taught Ryan Tannehill, so now I can teach Aaron Rodgers"? If you're Josh McDaniels, you say, "Well, I have been with Tom Brady for what is it, almost a decade total." So now I
Well,
can
it's
help you become on that kind of level.
like his 18th year on the faculty with the Patriots.
Yeah. Okay. So I was not even close,
I
but
thought
you
I'm
get what I
pretty
mean.
sure Iron Eagle mentioned that on Sunday.
So I just think that that's interesting, but I think McDaniels might be biting off a little bit more than he can chew if he goes to Green Bay because of those roster issues like you talked about.
Yeah,
But it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. It just seems like every year there are Patriot coaches kind of on the market, but I don't know. Last year I
yeah,
was really adamant on none of them leaving because of the way it ended last year, and you kind of need to make a statement this year, and we're still kind of in the middle of this season, so it's tricky to know which way we're going to be leaning. If we're going to be like, oh man, you got to the Super Bowl, you did great, now you can kind of take it apart a little bit, lose some guys, or we really got to get building for next year. We got to come back stronger. We got to make a Super Bowl run.
yeah.
I don't
So,
know.
so it's actually interesting. So McDaniel's 2001 starts as a personal assistant, then
Hmm.
2002 2003 defensive assistant, then 04 to 05 quarterbacks coach. Then he takes over OC and quarterbacks coach till 2008, and he does his thing with the Rams and the Broncos, and then he's now officially offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. I didn't realize he was the quarterbacks
I
coach.
thought that was Chad O'Shea. Let's do wide receivers.
Wikipedia has him listed as the quarterbacks coach.
Oh boy. Good sources here on the Beantown Banter show.
Yes.
Heard it up, Wikipedia. Hmm. Well, that's just an interesting note to kind of keep an eye on. Obviously, there probably won't be any news about where somebody is actually going to end up until the Patriots potentially get eliminated or win the Super Bowl. We never know. But yeah, it'll be interesting. Another interesting year with Patriots coaching moves potentially happening.
Yes.
But focus right now is on that game against the Chargers next Sunday at 1 o'clock at Gillette Stadium. Well, first, let's get your prediction for the game. You think the Pats can pull it out?
Yeah. I will
Yep.
say it won't be tight defensively. I think it'll be a shootout.
Really?
I don't think it's like a high-scoring shootout like we saw with the Super Bowl where someone's in the 50s, but right? The Eagles ended up at the 50s, right?
I thought it was like high 40, but
All right,
same
yeah,
difference.
close enough.
Yeah.
I will say, do you want a score prediction?
I mean, if you want, I'm putting you on the spot here a little bit, I realize.
I'll say Patriots 35. Whatever needs to happen for that to happen.
That's 5 touchdowns.
5 touchdowns, essentially. And Chargers 27.
So I'm on the other end. I think it's going to be very defensive game.
Really?
I think, you look at that Chargers defense and especially their secondary. I think, unfortunately, as hard as it is to say this, Tom's going to struggle with them, I think. So
Their secondary has also been a pleasant surprise. So, I mean, it just comes down to if they keep performing to what they've been doing all year.
Right. But if today's any indication, then they're going to be pretty good next week. So I'm thinking that it's going to be the Patriots defense that's going to have to win it for them. And I think they will be able to make some plays against Phillip Rivers like they have in the past. So I would say that's going to be the side you're going to lean on. As much as crazy it is to say like Tom Brady's going to need a defense to win the playoffs because Tom can usually, handle it on his own unless you're in the Super Bowl against Nick Foles. But I think the defense will have to come up with a good performance next week to get that win. So I would say low scoring, probably around like a 24. Here's a crazy number, 16. 24-16 Pats. I think it's going to be close, but I think it's going to be fairly low scoring. We're kind of both on opposite ends of the spectrum here, so that's interesting. But that's our thoughts. Obviously, let us know your thoughts in any means you're able to do so, because I always want to hear feedback from our listeners. But moving along into your second Boston sports team of the day, we have the Boston Bruins, who are red hot, coming off of their 4th win in a row. But they started the week on Tuesday in the Winter Classic, defeating the Chicago Blackhawks 4-2. First, your thoughts on the Winter Classic, Patrick?
On the event itself and like the game overall, I think the NHL hit a home run. I think it was one of the best Winter Classics we've seen in a while. Perfect conditions. Snow would have been a nice touch. But
it almost did.
No glare from the sun, no rain to deal with. Perfect temperature. The memory serves, they didn't have to fix the ice once. Aside from obviously like the TV timeouts where they go out and scrape it. And the game overall, like it was a great game. Like that's the little bias there because the Bruins won, but even like overall, like the game itself was a very good quality game. That any hockey fan would have enjoyed, back and forth. And then to the Bruins standpoint, I thought they were really sloppy through the first 2 periods, and which forced Tuukka Rask to stand fairly tall. The second goal he gave up was soft, but I'm remembering that right. Yeah, second goal he gave up was soft, but I think overall he was real sharp and played real well. And finally, when the third period the Bruins picked it up, Cam Ward stood on his head as well. Both goalies were real good in that game. And then we see Dave Pastrnak showing off his all-world personality and ability.
Didn't love that celebration. He said he was going for LeBron James. I think it was a shot at the Blackhawks there with the little Hawk celebration.
Really? You took that as flying?
You didn't?
I took it as like when like you see like LeBron or like whoever like just like push down at the ground with their
Really?
Yeah, that's how
I thought the arms were a little bit more spread than that. I thought there was kind of an eagle-ish motion going on.
It's also he's a lanky kid too. He doesn't have the coordination.
He doesn't have coordination after that goal. I think he does.
Yeah, so he scores that goal. It's a nice, pretty goal. And then we see the decision-making go out the window late in the first period where Krejci feeds him high in the slot. And he makes a move, and if he shoots to the right side, he has Cam Ward totally beat. He makes that final move to the backhand right into Cam Ward. So that was The decision-making certainly could have been better, but overall good game from the Bruins.
Yeah, I
Sean
think so.
Kuraly, 2 game winners in a row.
Sure, Sean Kuraly kind of heating up there on the fourth line, which you love to see getting that low line production. But yeah, I think it was a good win for the Bruins coming off of what was a terrible loss in their last Winter Classic game to come back to set the score right and go 4-2 victory. I think it was just a great occasion, like you said. I think they nailed it. Going to Notre Dame Stadium, all the history there. I thought it was a little strange that whole walk that they had. They went out of the locker room back to like the Touchdown Jesus Library and then back through the building and then out to the ice. They walked a half marathon by the time they got to the ice. I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, good little history touch there. And I thought just an all around, another success on a Winter Classic stage for the NHL. So
And Tuukka playing well with a different mask.
Tuukka, yeah, do you never see
Tuukka
that?
playing,
Never see Tuukka play well outside. So
I mean, we only have 2 games to compare.
That's a good point.
But we've never seen Tuukka play well with a different mask.
Right.
So there you have it.
So one more thought on the Winter Classic, though.
Okay.
Do you think it could ever come back to Boston? Probably not in Fenway or Gillette because they wouldn't do a site again, but potentially back here in the Northeast, let's say, where the Bruins would be the host. Do you think that could happen?
Well, where would they play it?
I was thinking about that. All I can think of is like Alumni Stadium at BC, Harvard Stadium, a little bit of history at Harvard Stadium, the Yale Bowl potentially.
If it was at the Yale Bowl, it'd probably be the Rangers as the host.
Oh, boo. Rangers, Bruins, Yale Bowl, 2020.
As far as Harvard or Alumni Stadium, I have to check the capacity on Alumni Stadium, but Harvard Stadium would not be big enough at all.
Yeah. The bowl is huge, right? Yale Bowl is big.
I think so.
We just solved it. Yeah, there you go.
Harvard Stadium's 30,000. They set the record this year with 76,000, and they were at Gillette, which is 69,000. So I mean, I don't think they would do a Winter Classic for Alumni Stadium because it's only 44,500.
And it's not that historic, yeah.
But I could certainly see them doing like a Stadium Series game there. But the Stadium Series is more for the other teams that aren't as historic. The Winter Classic is historic.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna get into some nationals, but next year with the Dallas Stars, I'm sure they'll play on the Minnesota North Stars a lot for that, and you'll see Mike Modano getting trotted out left and right.
Mike.
So, I don't see it coming back to Northeast unless they repeat Fenway or Gillette.
I don't know. The thought of Yale Bowl, Rangers Bruins, your original 6 matchup. That'd be nice. I'd be a fan of that.
So the Yale Bowl seats 64,000. They could definitely do that.
That's great.
Because I think next year for the Cotton Bowl, I'm not sure the attendance, but I think they might be going for another record.
Really? Well, I like how they're getting in these college stadiums. Have they done Lambeau? Lambeau would be a good place.
Lambeau would be a good place. But the issue would be in like 03, 04, I think it was when they did the Heritage Classic for the first time up in Saskatchewan, and it was Oilers Canadians. It was -22.
Oh my!
So next year they're doing Canadians Oilers again in Regina, Saskatchewan for a Heritage Classic, and they're doing it like October to avoid the -22.
Yeah.
So I don't think they'd be able to do the Winter Classic at Lambeau. They could definitely do a Stadium Series between the Wild and whomever at Lambeau, because they already did a Stadium Series between the Wild and the Hawks at, I don't know the stadium. I think it was it Target Field?
Maybe. Couldn't tell you. Google's gone.
But yeah, I think a temperature would certainly be an issue they'd have to play with.
Right. You raise a good point. Anyway, probably enough Winter Classic talk for one day, but that'll be interesting to see how that plays out, and we will get to more Winter Classic talk actually later, where we start talking about the 2020 Winter Classic held down in the Cotton Bowl. But the Bruins also won 2 other games this week. They first beat Calgary at home 6-4. Just a quick thought on that, maybe?
So I was impressed with that because that's a game where they could easily have taken a night off. I mean, Calgary is the best team in the West, or was tied for the best team in the West. So that's coming off a big game at the Winter Classic. It's a game that doesn't really matter much to you as far as your standings go. And then to come out and they played real well offensively. And Halak did let some softies up, but he also had some big saves early on when they were sloppy again. So Overall, a good game when they easily could have mailed it in.
Right. Then you beat Buffalo 2-1, another come-from-behind win, if I remember correctly.
Nope.
Yesterday, on Saturday, their fourth win in a row.
Was not a come-from-behind win.
Oh.
They went up 2-0, and then Buffalo came back to within one.
Ristolainen got the goal to make it interesting. Yep.
Yeah, so good for Chris Wagner to score a goal the day after his grandfather passed. Scored two, technically.
Two.
So we'll get right into that. I understand Cassidy challenging it because Linus Olmark was in a different zip code, but they called it by the rule book, which I'm totally okay with. And even if it's incidental contact, it is goalie interference. Mm-hmm. So to challenge that early in the hockey game and lose your timeout on a pretty obvious call, I thought, I just didn't get it.
Yeah.
And especially where Rask made a big save on, I believe it was Vladimir Sobotka, came in the zone, and it was offside. It was a good chance for Buffalo. And had they scored there, you wouldn't have your challenge.
True.
But overall, Rask was sharp again in a big game. That's essentially a 4-point game because you keep Buffalo from getting 2 and you get 2 yourself.
Right.
Now you're only 4 back of Toronto, even though Toronto still has games in hand. And you further push yourself away from Buffalo, who's fallen down to the last wild card spot with the Islanders jumping.
We knew they'd come back a little bit. I told you.
I mean, since the win streak, they've only won 5 games.
Right. Can only be hot for so long there, Buffalo. But their time's going to come because that's a really good team. Just a little young.
Look out next year.
Look out next year, indeed. Atlantic's about to be the best conference in hockey.
I think it already is the best conference in hockey.
Really? Okay.
Well, you have Tampa, who's far and away the best team in the league. It's no contest. And then you have Toronto, arguably the best offense in the league. And then you have the Bruins, once they're healthy and firing on all cylinders, could easily push for that second spot. I mean, we forget last year, the Bruins with essentially the same roster, but minus Riley Nash, obviously, and Rick Nash. And you add John Moore to the defensive group this year and improve Charlie McAvoy and improve Brandon Carlo. The Bruins were challenging for the top spot with Tampa last year. So,
it's true.
And that was a Bruins team that was on this ridiculous run since the turn of the calendar. So, if they can get hot like that, I mean, they're obviously not going to catch Tampa. Tampa's too far ahead. But they could, if they get hot, and Toronto kind of stays middling. I think they're 2-1 in their last 3. They could. Toronto 6-3-1 in their last 10. Bruins 7-3-0. Bruins have won 4 in a row. So if they can keep this up, obviously not a huge win streak, but maybe a point streak or just minimize the losses, could surpass Toronto and then create a bit of a cushion. So.
Alrighty, well, looking forward here for the Bruins as they look to continue their win streak. They'll take on the Minnesota Wild on Tuesday, followed by the Washington Capitals on Thursday, both of those games at home. Then they'll travel to Toronto on Saturday to take on the Maple Leafs, but they're kind of continuing this theme of every other day they have a game. So it's a pretty busy schedule for the Bees. They actually have a game every other day until Thursday the 17th, January 17th. So they're going to be busy here this next stretch, but they're playing good hockey. So it seems like if there's a time for them to have a lot going on, it seems like this is it with all the momentum they've got going on.
Yeah, and they still have till the end of February to figure things out with the third line center and the second line right wing. I really liked last night. They go back to the kids line for the third line.
We love that.
I think that's been your best third line all season.
Right. So for the people out there, that's Heinen, JFK, and Donato on your third line.
And one of the biggest things is it looks like they're having fun when they're on that line.
It does?
Yeah.
You can see that?
It looks like they're having way more fun. They look like they're playing a lot looser.
They told you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
I have best friends with Ryan Donato. Didn't you hear?
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know, especially Donato. He seems looser, not worried about playing off the puck. He'll have extra responsibility with Krejci because he has JFK and Heinen, very sound defensive players, especially Heinen, one of the most underrated two-way games on the team. And I don't know. I just like that line. I think it's dangerous every time it's on the ice.
I agree. And then, of course, here's one more young guy. We talked about him earlier, off the podcast I was here. Anders Bjork, still down there in Providence. Still a lot of potential in that guy, but just no time up here with the first team and the Bruins. You think that he's a top 6 only guy. You wouldn't put him any lower, huh?
So we saw John Tortorella in Columbus today, was asked about Sonny Milano. Older than Bjork, but kind of the same situation, highly skilled guy, and it hasn't clicked yet in the NHL for him, or it hasn't clicked consistently. And so he's in Cleveland right now with their AHL affiliate, and they asked Tortorella about him coming back up, and Tortorella said, not unless it's a top 6 role, because we want him in a top 6 role down there rather than having to play with the grinders up here on the third line, which I feel that same sentiment is with Bruce Cassidy and Don Sweeney when it comes to Anders Bjork, because if he were to be up here, he would have to be on like the kids line, but unless someone gets hurt, there's no room for him on that kids line.
Right.
And he hasn't proven that he can do in the top 6 yet. But why would you play him on the fourth line or just have him sit in the press box? So I think you'd rather have him continue to round out all aspects of his game in Providence, like Donato did, even though Donato was only like 10 games.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that ideally that was their plan for him in the first place. But where we have everyone healthy now and everyone playing somewhat well, it's not a complete black hole outside the top line now. It's everyone's kind of getting to where they should be.
Yeah.
So it's just a case of there's no room for him, and why rush him?
Yeah, I just don't love it though, because you're still looking for that, sixth guy there on your top 6 lines. You've got your first line you don't really want to touch with Bergeron, Marchand, and Pastrnak. We know how much Cassidy loves those. He'll never take them apart, sadly. But then he's got the second line, Krejci, DeBrusk, but you're still missing that third guy. And so they've tried,
They looked
Nordstrom
really good
there.
with
They've tried Backus there.
They looked really good with Backus there last night.
So you think he's their long-term solution on the second line?
I don't think he's long-term. I think they're going to try it till it stops working,
Right.
which I think they're hoping is until Nordstrom comes back.
Great. So then Joakim Nordstrom can be your second-line winger.
So we can keep pretending
Career
Joakim
fourth line.
Nordstrom's a 6 line or a
Yeah.
top 6 player. It's interesting because it's a fine line with these prospects, even if they're in the NHL. Like, it's still a fine line to walk with Donato and JFK and Heinen.
Mm-hmm.
I think they would love to try Bjork in that top 6. I think he'd be a perfect fit on either Krejci or I think he'd be a better fit on Bergeron's right.
Yeah, he's played there before.
Right? He has. He played there for 20 games last season.
Yeah.
Before he got hurt, and it worked. He had 4 goals and 3 assists.
Mm-hmm.
But I think once they think he can get back to there, because obviously you come off missing a season with a broken collarbone, so obviously there's a confidence issue there. It's the last mental hurdle he has to get through, like Hayward, which I'm sure he's gone past by now. It's just finding it again on the ice and finding consistency. And like Danton Heinen, I'm sure that since he hadn't done it up here, I'm sure his confidence was shot. So it's like I said to you earlier, these guys are all skill players, and they've put up numbers no matter where they've played. And now that they're struggling a little bit in the NHL, it's obviously the no confidence. They're gripping the stick a little tighter, missing the net more, trying to be too cute, and just overthinking it. So I think once get him back into Providence, get him to keep putting up points like Donato did, get him back in his comfort zone, and once they feel he's ready, I'm sure he'll get another shot up there. But it's also they have to deal with the waivers situation.
Right.
So that's why I think they've been hesitant until they know for sure he's ready, because they don't want to bring him up here, lose 10 games on him, and see he's not ready but can't send him down because of waivers.
Yeah, so it's a tricky situation going on there, and it could be even trickier if they end up getting that top 6 winger via trade. Then where does Bjork go? It's tricky.
Then I'm sure whoever they get, I'm sure either Heinen, Bjork, or Donato will be part of the package because they got to move somebody.
True. So maybe that'll fix your problem. With that logjam you have of young talent, if you're getting rid of some of them to get that top 6 guy, you can kind of kill 2 birds, 1 stone there. But that's something that we're going to have to wait a little bit to see. I think right now the focus is just on this kind of difficult stretch the Bruins have going on. A lot of Eastern Conference competition they've got in these next few weeks. But certainly winnable games, especially the way that they are playing right now.
Yeah, and it's also a lot of out-of-division games because I think they're done with Buffalo now.
Yeah, they are.
They have one more with Buffalo.
Which is sad because that's been a fun series to watch.
I think they have one more with Toronto, then they're done. And then it's just really Florida and Tampa Bay the rest of the way.
Right. So, good luck
So,
with
I
Tampa
mean,
Bay.
so you got to try and rack up as much points out of the division as you can and then capitalize on those division games.
Right.
If you can, obviously, more suited to capitalize on the Florida games than Tampa Bay, but do what you can.
Right. Alrighty. Well, moving along to the Boston Celtics. Celtics coming off of 2 wins in a row after defeating the Minnesota Timberwolves on January 2nd, 115-102, followed by the Dallas Mavericks on Friday, 114-93. A little bit of a later week for the Celtics, but they were without Kyrie Irving for it after he suffered an eye injury, also without Aaron Baines, also without Marcus Morris, and Rob Williams added to the injury list as well. So very shorthand Celtics team, but able to pull out some wins.
Yeah, I mean, interesting loss to the Spurs there.
Yeah, last week, yeah.
But
Oh, actually, yeah, that was actually before or
that was after we
after we
recorded.
recorded. So yeah, the Spurs lost 121-11 on the last day of 2018. So it's true. You
Yeah, and
can't ignore that one.
you
Yeah,
had Kyrie go down in that game.
that's when he got hurt.
So, I mean, they played really well without Kyrie. We've seen Jalen and Gordon come back. I mean, Gordon Hayward, if we play the Timberwolves every night, he'd be the league MVP.
Yeah, he would.
Um,
35 points against the Timberwolves.
and Jaylen Brown, I think. So, I'll just jump into the Jaylen Brown situation right now. I think it's the mental thing. It's a different mental thing. It's not like the confidence hurdle like Hayward.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more of figuring out his role where his minutes have been reduced since he's coming off the bench, and now that he's thrust back as a starter, or
Right.
not a starter, Terry Rozier has been put in place. But more minutes and more responsibility without Kyrie, he's finally doing what we expected him to do. So I think if he can just accept that he's not going to get this big of a share when everybody's healthy, and he can expect, like, this is my role as long as I'm not a starter. I do what I can there, rather than, I mean, I'm not going to say pout, because, like, obviously he's not pouting, but rather than kind of just go through the motions on the floor, and he'll actually play dynamic like he is now.
Right.
If that made sense, that was all over the place.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, it's just tricky because you want to say, like, oh, yeah, well, these guys are performing now, but it's without Kyrie. And so at that point, it's like, well, you need to perform with Kyrie because Kyrie's a big part of your team. And that's been their problem all along. Yeah, last season they were great down the stretch. Kyrie wasn't there, so they were getting more of the ball. They were scoring more. Things were great. They almost made it to the NBA Finals without their best player. Now your best player's back, and you're having problems with continuing that scoring when you're taking a lesser role. It just seems like the same problems reoccurring here with that Kyrie now out of the lineup. Yeah, we're seeing guys show up again, but it doesn't matter because Kyrie's going to be back, and they're probably going to go right back to where they were.
Well, it's because with Kyrie, the offense goes through Kyrie. Yeah. Without Kyrie, the offense goes by committee. Whoever is playing well a given night, which is usually, without Kyrie, it's your Tatums and your Browns. Oh. And now your Haywards as well. Mm-hmm. So they still got to find that balance.
Yeah, that's true. And there has been some blame put on Brad Stevens a little bit about finding that balance. And I think we've mentioned it before, but say it one more time. This is a guy who has coached teams in the past to success, but they've been teams with, kind of less talent that have kind of overachieved themselves. They've, outperformed what people expected from them. So now that he has the talent, it seems like they're kind of coming down to the competition, whereas in previous years they've played up to the competition. So you wonder if Brad Stevens can do it with, being the favorites, I guess.
Well, I think now, a little back to the Bruins for a little bit, but I think Brad and Bruce Cassidy are kind of in the same position, where they're having trouble finding the balance. Where 2 years ago when Bruce Cassidy was first hired, we were mesmerized by how quick he was to change things and how he wasn't afraid to try this. And we were like, oh, I never thought of that before. And it worked. And we're seeing this year, it's kind of the same head bashing against the wall, no Joakim Nordstrom on the second line. And this year with Brad, yes, we tried Jaylen Brown coming off the bench, but everyone thought that, like, Brad hasn't had that game-changing, clever lineup thing that he usually has. I think and it's also, again, so much talent now, he needs to find the balance of how much everybody needs to play to be effective.
Exactly. Well, he'll continue to try to find that balance this week as they'll take on the Brooklyn Nets on Monday, followed by the Indiana Pacers, very good Pacers team, at home on the 9th. And then on the 10th, they'll have the Miami Heat. Before Saturday, the 12th, they have the Orlando Magic. So after a week where they had they had 3 games this week. They'll have 4 next week. But only one team really there that should scare you all that much. Miami can be good, but I think the Pacers is where you have to really look out, especially considering that's a team that you could see down the road in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, so what would you say it was? Was the Nets, Miami, and who else?
Nets, Pacers, Heat, and Magic. A little tour of Florida there.
I think the Pacers might scare me more because it's also another potential playoffs matchup.
That's what I meant.
Depending.
Did I say the Heat?
You said the Heat.
Oh,
the Heat are also a potential playoff matchup too.
Yeah, no, I was saying the Pacers could be a team that you could find. I don't know if the Heat are really on that level yet.
They're on the Dwayne Wade glory tour, so it's a distraction there.
That's
but
right.
you already lost to the Pacers in heartbreaking fashion this year, and Victor Oladipo has become a superstar. If he's healthy, I'm not sure. So I would look out for that game.
Yeah, but again, we've said this multiple times with the Celtics, but you're getting some easier matchups here. You got to capitalize on it before you're getting back into the Torontos of the world. So good little stretch here for the Celtics if they're able to take advantage of it. But as we talked about, while you're implementing Kyrie again, getting Baines back involved eventually, we're gonna have to see if these guys who have been carrying the load since will be able to take that back seat and still produce, or if we'll go right back to the struggles that we had when we were at full strength a few weeks ago.
Exactly.
Well, moving on into our only Boston team that is not active currently, we have the Red Sox, and barely anything happened with the Red Sox this week. But last week in this podcast, we did talk about 2 guys, and that was Dave Robertson and Zach Britton of the Yankees, both of which we thought, still on the market. Maybe the Red Sox can make a push. Both of them are signed. Excuse me. Robertson, I'm getting really emotional about it. Robertson is now in Philadelphia with the Phillies, and then Britton re-signed with the Yankees, which I find hilarious because he was not very good with them, but they're going to try it again. Fooled me. What is it? What's the joke or the line? Fooled me once, shame on you. Fooled me twice.
Fooled me twice, shame on me.
Yeah, so that's what they're going for here because Britton was not a success for them last year. But they're trying it again. So that leaves the Red Sox with very little bullpen options other than to re-sign Craig Kimbrell, who seems like his expectations have, or they should have, dropped significantly looking at the rest of the market.
Yeah, so if you can get Kimbrell for 2 to 4 years on reasonable money, I'm all for it. But if we're asking for 6 and however much you want, wasn't it $66 million?
Something crazy. It was more than Chapman money, which is
if he's still asking for that, just absolutely not.
Yeah.
I saw what's his face, Ottavino was an option.
Yeah.
But so they're saying the Yankees are going hard at him and he's expected to sign somewhere this week. So I wouldn't mind him, but again, if you I think my preference right now is Kimbrell on reasonable years and reasonable dollars.
Right.
And we saw the wild expectations, J.D. Martinez and Scott Boras. Martinez is a Scott Boras guy, right?
Yep. That was the big problem. He just got Boras guy.
Yeah, we saw the expectations Scott Boras was saying for Martinez last offseason. Then Dave Dombrowski comes in here where we look at the contract. Oh, that's not bad. I actually like that contract. So, we could get another one of those with Kimbrell.
True. It feels like we're a broken record because it seems like we're talking about the relief pitching every week. What?
Because there's nothing new. They haven't done anything.
Right. Yeah, they haven't done anything. They don't have any holes on the actual roster, at least for this season.
Just sign Mookie Betts at this point.
Yeah, sign Mookie Betts, but that's kind of a pipe dream, it seems. He's it's always going to come down to difficult negotiations with him.
Well, it'll happen either way because it's arbitration, so it's just a matter of how much.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it just seems like the only pressing issue with this team come April is going to be that relief situation. That's the only real thing that we can see develop here in the next couple of days, or as soon as the next couple of days. All of a sudden it could come out Kimbrell signed. So that's why we're focusing on it so much. But we're going to be in a real pickle if they end up fixing this bullpen, and we don't have anything to talk about here the rest of the offseason. But I'm sure some things will happen. We still have Machado and Harper on the market, so that'll make a real splash when and where they sign. Um, but yeah, that's really it for the Red Sox for this week. Again, slow week on them, but plenty of stuff going on with the other teams, so that is okay. But that'll move us along into some national news. And Patrick, we talked a little bit earlier about the Winter Classic next year being held in the Cotton Bowl. You want to elaborate on that a little bit?
So 2020 Winter Classic, Dallas Stars hosting in the Cotton Bowl. I mean, I think they're going for the attendance record again. That's 86,000 capacity.
Wow.
Um,
Got to
so it
beat
can,
the big house. That's quite a task.
yeah, yeah. I don't know what I was thinking. I completely forgot about the big house, but that was over 100,000, right?
That's a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're not going to break the record again at the Cotton Bowl,
No.
but it's going to be interesting. Warm weather climate. Obviously, Dallas gets a little cool, not like California where it stays warm. Because we saw they did the stadium series between the Ducks and the Kings at Dodger Stadium, which was interesting to say the least.
Yeah.
Um, and they also did stadium series at Levi Stadium between the Sharks and the Kings. So, I mean, it's going to be classic ice conditions. How can the refrigeration system hold up? And Dan Craig, the ice guru, how can he help the ice conditions fair? Because they worked around the clock this year. Because they had torrential rains on New Year's Eve, and then they also had unexpected torrential rains overnight before leading up to the game.
Right.
So, I mean, so I think it's gonna be. It comes down to who's who's the visiting team gonna be, and how's the ice gonna be.
Yeah, and just to going back a little bit here, the Michigan Stadium Winter Classic had 104,000 people in attendance. Cotton Bowl seats 92,000. So
yeah, so they're not
not
going to
going
get
to
the
be
record.
close unless they add a lot of seating, but you don't really see that happening.
Yeah, so when it came out on New Year's Eve that was going to be announced during the Winter Classic, um, it was going to be interesting. Like, do they pull the roof back at Jerry World and they
Yeah,
really go for the attendance record? That would have been interesting. But
I don't
I
know
like.
if Jerry World. I
I
don't
think
think
it
that would have
is.
had it. Really?
I think it is.
Google quick. AT&T Stadium capacity 100,000. So
Oh, no.
it would
It'd
have
be
been
interesting.
close. It
It
would
would
have
have been
been close.
close. Um,
Jerry
but
World.
I like the venue because I couldn't remember for a second. I was like, what stadiums are there in Dallas? We're like, oh, could they do NRG Stadium in Houston and test the Houston market? But I like the Cotton Bowl. Good history there.
Yeah, I mean, like I talked about earlier, it's good that they're kind of getting into some of these college stadiums, but it's just going to be interesting because that's not really an original six-team. Well, you said the was it North Stars?
Yeah, they'll milk the North
Yeah,
Stars, and then they say it won't be the Blackhawks, which is shocking because they seem to always be in an outdoor game. So I mean, they could do the Wild, do both North Stars there, even though the Wild were expansion. Um, they could do St. Louis, use their history. St. Louis has a pretty lengthy history, even though they haven't won a cup. Um, and that people said Vegas, but I don't really see that happening. I think it'd be a divisional game. I mean, I'm just trying to think of who Dallas might have a rivalry with. I think St. Louis would be good. They've met in the playoffs a few times. I think St. Louis or Minnesota would be the ones.
huh. So I'm looking at this site that's the most iconic sports venues in history, and I'm getting some good ones. Um, Would you? Here's my question for you. Would you ever want to see a Winter Classic go to Wembley Stadium in London?
I don't think they'd be able to do that.
No.
Oh, speaking of London, Red Sox Yankees in London next year.
Yeah, in a soccer stadium. That's gonna be interesting.
It is.
It's
But
actually the soccer stadium of the team I support in the Premier League, West Ham United, and I've actually been to that stadium, and there's zero chance it's gonna look good for baseball.
really,
Well, so it's a track stadium, right? So you got a big bowl, and it's pretty circular. So you wonder if it
oh
could be like one of those cookie cutter '80s stadiums.
yeah, so it'd be like the Olympic Stadium in Montreal with the Expos.
Okay, but so now they have it for soccer, where it's like the goals on each end. But the way they want to do baseball is they want to have home plate kind of where between the benches, and then going out the short distance on the soccer field. So if I mean it's a lot of kind of just eyeballing here, but it feels like the dimensions are going to be smaller than Yankee Stadium, and that's saying something.
I mean, drive the offense, get the London crowd interested, I
Okay,
guess.
great. Yeah, 300 foot to the bleachers. Here's another interesting one. Actually, oh man, I think it's I'm drawing a blank. Is it Bristol Motor Speedway? The
Yeah.
big racing? Can you
In
imagine a winter classic at Bristol Motor Speedway? Woo!
in Tennessee.
Yeah.
Bristol's in Tennessee,
Basically like
right?
the football stadium that they race in. It's like a quarter mile. You're always turning.
There's no infield there though. Because
Okay.
you see the
We
racing
better we
stadiums
gotta
have
get
like the grass.
our what?
Because you see like the racing stadiums have the grass infield. That doesn't have one.
Oh, you're right. I'm looking at Google Images now. They've got that big stanchion in the middle.
Yep.
Wait, how Bristol Motor Speedway will become? We're going down a rabbit hole here,
Yeah,
folks.
we gotta stop here.
How it will become a college football's biggest coliseum. They're doing a what?
They're
They're
putting
doing a
grass
football
in it.
game there.
Wow.
Tennessee Volunteers versus I have no idea. Anyway, that's exciting. But yeah, we got to stop with that.
So I
Just
got
interesting stuff to consider.
two more NHL things before we
All
get
right,
to the NFL.
go ahead.
So, uh, so we got. And speaking of Dallas, we forgot to mention last week. Tom Lights or Jim Lights, CEO of the Dallas Stars, calling out Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin.
Yeah, we forgot about that. That was big news.
So all I really got to say about that is that shouldn't be stuff that's said to the media. That should be kept in house.
And apparently, he pulled the media guy aside to say
Yeah,
that.
he like went out of his way to get the media guy into his office to say that. It wasn't
That's
in a
nuts.
regularly scheduled interview. So that's interesting. And Jamie Benn comes out and says he doesn't play for Tom Lights. He plays for the guys in the room and the logo on the sweater. Which
Who
I mean,
signs his checks though?
good. Not Tom Lights. Tom Lights is the CEO, not the owner.
Okay.
And then Tyler Seguin kind of agreed, says he needs to step up, but like it's neither their faults. They're both over 30 points, 35 points, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
and where no one else on the team is over 20 aside from Alex Radulov. So it's more of the GM's fault that they're playing poorly, and they're in a playoff position. This guy said it the day after a win, and with Dallas in a playoff position. So I don't really understand it, and like I think they have their expectations a little too high. You don't have the defense nor the depth to compete for a cup. You can certainly make the playoffs, but you need to improve both of those to make a cup run. So that's all I got to say on that. And then the last thing is our guy Dougie Hamilton in Carolina.
Dougie.
There's been some trade rumblings out there again. So his deal is he's struggling. He's having a real tough year. Apparently more locker room issues.
Shocking.
And he just shocker newsflash: the offensive defenseman can't play defense. So, he's also not. That's for another day.
He has a negative points rating even when he's on the ice for 4 goals.
That's for another day.
Okay.
But we'll see. Like Torrey Krug's thing is he does so much for your breakout, so much for your power play, and he does things other guys wouldn't try. Where he looks to make a play coming out of the zone rather than just banking it up the boards. He'll look for the tape-to-tape pass first, or make that bold play up the middle that other guys won't. We see that goal the other night with Pastrnak, slap shot off the end boards. How many guys can do that besides?
All right, your point is made. Continue with the.
And the similarities with Krug and Grzelcyk stop at their left shot, white tape, and 5'9".
Okay.
That's where the similarities end. Grzelcyk can't match his offense. But yeah, back to Dougie Hamilton. So there's rumors Toronto might want to bring back the hometown boy here, where he's not the type of defenseman he needs. So if they get him and they have to give up a good amount to get him, I kind of laugh and just say, all right, you're going to be able to score, maybe score more goals, but how much better is your defense?
Yeah. Huh.
He's not the type of guy they need on defense.
That just sounds like the big name that they'd be going for, because they love a big name up in Toronto.
They do.
But
they
love a big name in any Toronto sport.
Yeah.
Troy Tulowitzki,
it's a tough situation there because he has a reasonable contract, Hamilton, but they also have the cap crunch this summer and next.
Right.
So that's all I got.
Alrighty, well that's a look around the NHL for you, but we'll finish off here with some NFL, which is obviously this is the biggest time of the year for the NFL with your playoffs starting. So wild card round this week. We already talked about the Chargers and Ravens, which started off play earlier today because today is Sunday. They played at 1:00 today. Chargers getting the win 23-17. We've given our thoughts on that. Actually, one more. I don't know if you didn't watch the second half, really. Lamar Jackson was getting booed by the Ravens fans because he had negative passing yards through 3 quarters. He ended up coming back,
He
scoring
had
2
42
touchdowns.
through three quarters.
What?
He had like
Okay.
42. He didn't have negative.
Okay, whatever. He had negative at one point. I was maybe exaggerating, I must say. Do you think they should have put in Joe Flacco? At some
Do I
point?
think they pushed to put in Joe Flacco?
Should have. I can't speak English. Do you think they
No.
should have put in Joe Flacco?
No.
No?
I don't
I
think it
was
would have been that much of an improvement.
Really? I think you just got to throw everything you have at them
You
at that
see,
point.
I mean, I don't, because it's good for him to get the experience and know what it feels like.
Mhm. Do you
Because
think it was a lost cause by that point, and they were like, okay, Jackson, just go ahead, go get
yeah,
it?
because he had a hell of a fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And we see after the game John Harbaugh coming out and saying Lamar Jackson is the Ravens' future and Joe Flacco, quote, will have a market.
Of course he will.
So, I mean,
Super
it's
Bowl champion,
clear
MVP.
it's clear who their guy is. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't see any reason to go back to a guy who's clearly not going to be in your plans next year.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I wasn't really thinking long term about that. I was thinking more about just win today. And
Yeah.
I think, you see Jackson, and any time they pressure him, he just tucks the ball and scrambles and tries to run for it. He's never, looking down the field. He's kind of playing the college quarterback where you can just do everything with your legs. He's not looking to throw, which is what the good quarterbacks do when they're under pressure.
That's the learning curve everybody goes through. I mean, that's what got Deshaun Watson hurt last year.
Right.
So that's just something that everybody has to learn.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Deshaun Watson, he had his own struggles, only putting up 1 touchdown in that ugly loss to the Colts, 21-7, but it felt a whole lot less close than a 2-score game. And I had a bone to pick with Deshaun Watson. I've seen this on other places too. So he's down 21 points. It's like late third quarter, and he runs for a first down, and he gives him the first down little celebration. He's doing a little dance or something. Why are you doing that when your team is down 21-0 to a 6 seed at home?
Oh man,
that's just immature. And it's a second-year quarterback. It's the franchise QB for that team. They have no other option, and he's just like, does he have the maturity? Because sometimes it seems like, okay, this is a good quarterback, or he's the top 10 quarterback in the league. He's gonna be great. And then other times it's like, okay, buddy, like you're still a kid. So.
Yeah, but he's still like. It was after some good plays, and I mean, like obviously, like it's still like again, why are you doing that? But I don't find it that big of an issue. I don't want you to go all Don Cherry on me.
Okay, yeah, Don Cherry was So he said like Canada going up 14-0 and then getting knocked out. He said you had that coming because you won 14-0. Was that it?
I think so. That was hilarious.
That was funny.
Especially the way they lost to Finland.
Oh man,
tough break
Finland
for the U.S. Tough break for the U.S. I mean, a couple of Bruins prospects in there. Uro Vaakanainen winning gold with Finland.
Mm-hmm.
Pavel Shen, I believe, winning bronze with Russia, if Russia won the bronze. Kyle Kaiser getting silver with the U.S. and
didn't play though. Didn't play.
Kyle Kaiser. Yeah, he didn't play in that last game, which was interesting because they started the tournament with him and he played pretty well.
Well, they rode Primo the whole way down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of typical of junior tournaments too, of revolving door on the goalie tender too.
Huh. Goalie tender.
Yeah, I know.
Got him.
I went to say goalie and then goaltender.
Yeah, you gave it your best.
It's kind of like Jack Edwards saying skull.
Alrighty. And moving along, NFL, a different matchup. The Seahawks and the Cowboys. Cowboys came out on top there, which I was pretty surprised by. They won 24-22 over Russell Wilson, beat Carroll and the Seahawks. Pretty impressive performance from the Cowboys. Are you buying in on them at all?
Well, I didn't watch it, first of all.
That's a problem.
So I'll say no.
Okay.
Because I don't know, like we got to see Dak do it on a bigger stage.
Well, they're going into LA this week, so they'll be in the Coliseum taking on the Rams.
I just don't see them beating LA.
No, I don't. I think as much as I hate to say it, feels like you're going to get all your bye teams winning next week.
Yep.
I think KC will take care of the Colts, but the Colts could have something going there. They've only lost one game in the last 12 or something.
Yeah, they're definitely the Eagles of last year.
Yeah, they're on fire.
Which kind of scares me.
The Colts?
Just
No, you
Just
own the
it's
Colts.
no,
We
just
own
like
the Colts.
no, just how it's like the same scenario.
Yeah.
Where
Huh.
like not necessarily if I'm the Patriots they scare me, but like if I'm the Chiefs or
Oh
I'm
yeah.
like the rest of the league, it's kind of like look out.
Yeah. Well, I'm a naive millennial, but apparently there's quite a history there between the Chiefs and the Colts, where the Colts have just dominated the Chiefs in the playoffs historically.
I had no idea.
Yeah, who knew? So, but maybe there's a little bit of a bad taste there in Kansas City, a little bit of a choky situation. Andrew Luck, you know, puts in a performance of his life and moves along to the AFC Championship. We could see that happening. That would be pretty interesting.
We
Um,
could.
and then the final matchup of the day, we already kind of touched on it a little bit, but earlier today, the Eagles snuck out a victory 16-15 in the probably the most dramatic game of the weekend, where the Bears missed a field goal at the buzzer. So the Eagles, after getting the go-ahead touchdown with about a minute to play, a little bit less, they ended up taking the victory 16-15. So Nick Foles still
The
undefeated in
legend
2018-19. Still,
the legend of Nick Foles continues to
he's
grow.
still going. I mean, I
I
feel
mean,
like it's just a fun
Patriots,
story.
Bill, take a look. You
Okay.
see what you move on from Brian Hoyer. Move
Oh,
on
how
from
old is he? He's
Brian
like
Hoyer.
32. No thanks.
That's Bill.
He
If
could
you're
be your
listening,
bridge guy though. No.
take a listen. He could be your bridge guy. He
Oh, but
absolutely could.
oh god.
I'm on the Nick Foles bandwagon.
Clearly. Well, it's hard not to be. It's just a fun story to watch at this point. I never thought I'd be rooting for Nick Foles after the debacle that was the Super Bowl last year, but I think it's just fun to watch. And knocking off a good team like the Bears, too, wasn't pretty, but that's still a pretty impressive performance.
And plus, my buddy who's an Eagles fan, I like sticking it to him that they're performing this well with Foles instead of Wentz.
Yeah. Just to trade Nick Foles this offseason and go back to mediocrity with Carson Wentz.
Yeah, I just don't understand it. You have a guy who's an MVP level this year, and then all of a sudden it's just meh all year.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, and
Something cooking there, Nick
unfortunately,
Foles.
what?
Maybe
What?
something cooking there. Nick Foles, starter.
Whoa.
Um, Nick Foles, franchise quarterback.
Yeah. Well, the Eagles will probably be the sacrificial lambs next week, heading into New Orleans to take on that steam train. Um,
I
but
mean,
who knows?
we said that about the
The Bears.
Vikings going to play Philly last year.
Hmm.
Oh no, the Vikings never played Philly. We
In the
said that about
NFC
the Falcons
Championship.
going to play Philly. That's right, we did.
Yeah.
That's right, because they did end up winning. My bad. We said that about the Vikings last year.
Wow. On the Eagles bandwagon
We
here.
said that about the Vikings.
Oh my
But
gosh.
New Orleans should mount the floor with them.
Yeah, I think so.
Such a turn from optimism to bleak, right there. Like,
Alrighty. Well, I think
no,
that's
I
as
feel so bad for Cody Parkey.
yeah. Well, he seems like you
As a
always
human.
have one of those.
I mean, yeah, I mean, because he makes that there's the whistle right before the first field goal. You're like, what's happening? And then they show timeout on the broadcast, and they show Doug Peterson. You're like, oh my god, they're icing him. But just wasn't meant to be for the Bears.
Yeah,
Cody
it's too
Parkey
bad, but they're gonna be a good team.
Yeah,
Bears are gonna be good. So
gets that punt.
what?
Cody Parkey couldn't bear down.
Oh, okay, buddy.
So the pun and throwing their own slogan back in their face.
Man,
Oh,
we are.
before we call it here, I got one more thing on the NBA with
Alrighty.
Jimmy Butler aggressively calling out Brett Brown
I
about
thought you would mention this, and it just triggers me so much.
why we love seeing their big three fall to shambles.
How did
It
they
was
had to see this coming?
yeah, it was a tenuous relationship when he got there from the start, and
Yeah.
now it's just what it was in Minnesota.
Yeah, Jimmy Butler is just a bad locker room guy. That's what you have. So you bring him into a
He's
team
his
that's
own.
already, huh?
He's his own breed. Like he's not good enough to be the guy, but he needs to be the guy, or he
Right.
needs to feel like he's the guy. He's good enough to be the two guy.
Yeah. On paper, Philadelphia takes a step forward with him, but it feels like they're taking a whole lot of steps back with him in the locker room.
Yeah.
It's just ugly there. And I don't know. He did it in Minnesota. Now he's doing it here. Did he do it in Chicago too? Is he a problem there?
I think that was the whole reason that it
Yeah.
just started
It's
falling
like
apart in
he's
Chicago because they were
bouncing
bad.
around.
Well, you can't handle being bad either. Like I understand the guy just wants to win so badly, which is what started it in Minnesota and Chicago. And then now that he's winning, he has an issue with his role. So
Mhm. Common denominator here. Maybe just a little bit of a mental situation where he's just not content in any situation. Regardless, it's certainly an interesting thing to look at there in the Eastern Conference as the 76ers potentially burned in flames, which will always be fun to watch as a Celtics fan. But is that all we have? Any parting words maybe for the people at home?
No, that's all I got.
That's all you got? Alrighty. Well, we'll be back again next week as we continue here with our podcasts over the mid or between semester break. But that is it for this episode. So as always, thank you so much for listening and or watching, and we will see you next week.
Thanks for listening.